Ahoy, mateys! The BYU Cougars are 3-0 as they sailed into uncharted waters and smashed the East Carolina Pirates. Okay, I'm done with the puns. Let's talk about BYU running roughshod and getting to 3-0 on a postcast edition of Locked On Cougars.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City, Utah, and a 14-year credentialed media member at BYU. I am your resident expert and insider as your host here on this podcast, and as always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen, and in this case, sometimes on YouTube, your first view of the day. All right, postcast edition right now, and we're breaking it down. BYU beats East Carolina. They're 3-0. Life's good in P-Town, and we're talking about it. So if you guys want to drop your comments on YouTube, you can do that. We'll get to those. There's a lot of them already in there. But the biggest thing that I want to start off tonight's show by talking about is we are seeing Bear Bachmeier get better game by game by game. And quite frankly, I don't know what his ceiling is, but I'm excited to find out. Now, that's the thing about this is we've saw him, I thought in the second half in particular in this game, start to assert himself as a guy, as maybe the guy for this BYU offense. And that's an exciting proposition that if he is going to be what BYU's coaches believe he can be, because there's a reason why they fought so hard to get him here from Stanford when he decided to transfer and installed him as a day one starter, as a true freshman. They see oodles and oodles of potential in him, and I got to admit, I'm seeing it myself. I really thought that second half in particular, he showed himself and acquitted himself to be, I think, a guy that is going to be a difference maker for the Cougars. On the game, 18 of 25, for the first time in his career, goes over 200 yards, has 246 yards, 1 touchdown, and his completion percentage, 72%. I will remind you guys, last year, we really enjoyed what Jake Retzloff did for BYU because you can't take away the fact that he helped BYU get to an 11-2 record. But his completion percentage at the end of the season across 13 games, 57.9%. Bear Bachmeier, now with a 72%, I have to go back and do the math. He is well north of 65%, I think, on the season overall. Maybe just a shade under that, but bigger point is really impressive stuff. Conversely, Caton Hauser, the star quarterback for East Carolina, who have been completing 71.6% of his passes coming into this game, he ends up at 60%, 25 of 42, 285 yards, and 2 interceptions. And by the way, those 2 interceptions, absolute backbreakers because they came on back-to-back offensive plays for the East Carolina Pirates. And the interceptions went to Evan Johnson. Evan Johnson, what a dude. What a find, by the way. I'll tell more about his story in a moment. I want to stick with Bear Bachmeier for a minute. I thought what we saw from Bear Bachmeier showed his capability of really starting to learn this offense. Now, he spoke to the media after the game. I was actually listening to it post-game, and I'm going to pull this up here. I've got my notes. He said this. He said that it was about time to start airing it out. Now, there have been some criticisms, and understandably so, that BYU had not been letting him throw down the field. Well, I think tonight's game showed that he's taken that step or next step in that regard. Is the full offense open to him at this point? Is he capable of walking up to the line if he sees something and completely checking out of a play and calling his own number? Maybe not quite yet, but when you tally 418 yards, as I mentioned, a shade under 250 yards, the progression, it's absolutely evident. It's noticeable. And more importantly than that, we saw him also, I think, have some very effective runs. He ends up 5 carries for 26 yards, the longest 16, had that 1 touchdown run. And late in the game, remember, the QB run early on in the game, I said it myself on social media. Take that play sheet out of the playbook, wad it up, and toss it in the trash can. It was not working for Aaron Roderick and this BYU offense. But later in the game, as he got better passing the football, suddenly QB draw and called QB designed runs were working effectively. And he got a first down with a 15-yard run on 3rd and 14. That was about 4 minutes to go. And then we saw LJ Martin on a 3rd and 14, just 3 plays later, go 41 yards untouched into the end zone to essentially put the dagger and put that game to bed. BYU's ability to convert 3rd and longs late in this game, absolutely critical to BYU grinding out that victory. And really impressed, honestly, with Bear Bachmeier. I don't know how much more I can say about that other than to say I was really impressed with him. Now, Offensively, we'll get to the defense in just a little bit. Offensively, the offensive line was okay. It needs to clean up on the holdings. There was an illegal hands to the face by Andrew Gentry. Crazily enough, Isaiah Jada, I think some of you heard me say this on the podcast. Well, Pro Football Focus, who grades every college football player across the country, had Isaiah Jada rated as the highest offensive tackle in the country coming into this game. I think that rating is going to go down. I think he struggled in this game. He had a false start, if I recall, a couple of holding calls. Those grades will not be as kind to him. But the nice part was it felt like in this game, the offensive line continued to get stronger and stronger, and just kind of, to use the boxing analogy, lean on East Carolina. I love the nasty nature this BYU offensive line has. And yes, Kalani said it himself post-game. It needs to be cleaner. We can't have these penalties, because when you find yourself backed up in 3rd and longs, better teams, and I'm not saying that East Carolina was a slouch. I actually thought they were a pretty darn good football team. But better teams will make you pay for being in those 3rd and long situations. And you've got to be smarter with that. I really thought that Chase Roberts, I thought, emerged as a nice target once again for Bear Bachmeier. Maybe for the first time, he had 5 receptions for 97 yards, a shade under 100 yards. LJ Martin for his game, 101 yards, 3rd straight to start the season, 100+ yards. He's now got 4 career carries of over 40 yards. And if I recall correctly, all of those 40+ yard gains are this season alone. So we're watching an offense that really seems like it's rounding into form. I appreciated BYU making sure that Parker Kingston remained an integral part of their passing game. He had 5 receptions for 55 yards on 7 targets. He did lose his punt return job, but I really thought the offense did some really, really nice things. Carson Ryan, I need to mention Carson Ryan. He is, as I've said multiple times on this podcast, he is making BYU tight ends great again. And it's awesome to see in real time, because Aaron Roderick said it himself. After the horrific dislocated compound, whatever dislocation of the ankle that Isaac Rex suffered against USC, I think was that 2021? BYU's been without a true 3-down tight end since that time. And they've tried to ham and egg it and put it together with duct tape and bubble gum. Well, enter Carson Ryan, and he has proven himself to be, I think, a really, really key piece, if not a downright star for BYU. So 34 points, 418 total yards of offense. Quite honestly, I'm really impressed with the overall performance of BYU. Now, could they cash in some more in the red zone? Yeah, absolutely. But with a freshman quarterback, and Kalani said it himself, there was a corner or a post route he said that Chase Roberts was open on that he felt like Bear needed to throw that ball to. Well, that's the progression you're going to see, I think, as time goes along here. As Bear's going to get better and better, and he's going to be more effective. But I really like the way he started stepping into throws, started having the confidence to really gun stuff into tight windows as this game progressed, because I think it showed that this is a young man. He's growing up right before our eyes. And Kalani said it himself. Now, with 3 starts under his belt, he no longer considers him a true freshman. He's got to become a veteran player. And Big 12 play is here. BYU gets ready for Colorado starting tomorrow. So that's the fun part about that side of it. Now, defense, absolutely critical in this win. There's just zero doubt about it. And there is one thing in particular that this BYU defense, I heard it from Jack Kelly and Evan Johnson in the post game. And it's something that if you're an everydayer, you heard Gennaro Guilford say it on our Thursday edition of the show. Who is the mastermind? Well, I think we all know it's Jay Hill, but why? Why is Jay Hill so good at what he does? Well, I think there were 2 comments from Jack Kelly and Evan Johnson that once again proved the wizardry that is Jay Hill, and we'll get into that next. We roll on this postcast edition of Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Now, college football is here, everybody. I think we all are loving the fact that BYU is absolutely rocking and rolling. I could not be more excited. Tailgates, rivalries, the energy in the stand, there's nothing like it. But the one thing, I mean, a little bit of a downer, getting your tickets to games, especially a team as good as BYU. There's endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why I want to encourage you guys to do what I do and use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It is the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. The best part is you can pull up the Game Time app. In a couple of taps, you can see exactly what's available to you guys, and you can get in your favorite football games for as cheap as they possibly can make them. And the best part I love about it, you can see exactly what your view from your seat is, and there are no surprise fees being tacked on. The price you see when you open that app is exactly what you pay at checkout. They're not going to jump you as you try to get over to the games. Take a guess. We're going to buy your tickets and do it with our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Want to encourage you guys, if you've not done so already, be a part of the Insider Group, the Locked On Cougars Insider Group. It's a great way to interact with the show. It supports the show, but more importantly, gets you the insider intel that you crave. I'll just give you a little bit of an example of this. So in the pregame, Greg Rubel says, my pregame chat, here sounds like that BYU's going to be without defensive tackle Justin Kirkland. Well, I'll just put it this way. If you were an Insider Group member, you would have known that this morning. Just a little tidbit. 14-day free trial. Join the Insider Group. Click the link in the show notes or reach out to me via social media or email. We will get you squared away as a member of the Insider Group. Like I said, it's $5 a month, but you get 2 full weeks of free access before you're charged a single penny. All right, so BYU's defense in this game against East Carolina, I thought absolutely balled out. Now, they're upset because BYU went 11 quarters, 35 drives, more than an hour's worth of time on the field in terms of game time without giving up a touchdown. And it took until about the 8-minute mark of the fourth quarter of the third game for BYU's defense to finally crack and give up 6. Caden Hauser punched it in, and you could tell they were upset. They were like, that was a little bit of point of pride that their defense had been that elite to this point in the season. The one thing I loved about BYU's defense in this game is they took ECU completely out of their element in terms of the pace of play that the Pirates typically play with. Many of you might recall in the lead up to this game, ECU had been averaging nearly 86 yards per game. They ended up with 77, so it's still a high number of plays as compared to the grand total of 60 for BYU. So they almost ran 2 series more roughly than BYU, but BYU forced them to slow down. That was a really impressive thing. Now, ECU still piled up 404 total yards, but a good offense like that is hard to keep down. And the bigger point is 13 points. That's what counts. 13 points. And there were a couple of times that ECU threatened. That first interception that Evan Johnson picked off, ECU was on the 5-yard line when he picked it off. They scored that touchdown there at that point in the game. They have a different complexion in terms of the overall feeling at that point in said contest. I'm not saying that BYU would have lost in terms of that, but I really felt like BYU's defense, there was a bit of bend, don't break in this. There's just zero doubt because that's just part of the deal when it comes to how BYU operates on defense. There are times that they can be better on third downs, especially 3rd and long. And Kalani mentioned it himself. He said, we gave up some 3rd and longs in this game. He said, that's not us. And my thought was, I think a number of you who know me well, it's like, this kind of is you guys. Speaking of BYU, they do give up 3rd and longs. And I really do think they have a chance to improve in some respects with regards to 3rd downs. Could be better against the run. It felt like in this game they slipped a little bit in terms of the run game because this is a pass-heavy offense they were going up against. But stats-wise, BYU did their thing. Jack Kelly, I thought, was the star of the game. 7 total tackles, 4 of them solo, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. He said it to me at Big 12 Media Days. I want to have 10-plus sacks this season. Well, 3 games in, he's got 3, and you play 12 regular season games. He keeps that pace up. He absolutely will surpass that goal of 10. He wanted double digits, and it's only going to enhance his professional prospects if he can do that. Justin did make a good point here. The defense looked pretty gas on the TD drive they did give up. It did feel like later that the defense did get gas, but as I said, 77 plays, that's quite a bit. But you also heard Jack Kelly and Evan Johnson say that the pace of play that BYU practiced against in practice in the lead up to this game, actually thought it was faster than what ECU actually did. That's why I said they took ECU. They did take ECU out of their element a little bit and forced them to slow down. In many respects, college football is about imposing your will, imposing your style on opposing teams. And BYU offensively and defensively did that in this game. Not going to lie, just flipping back to the offense for a minute. I know Kalani Sitake is a prince of a human being. He's far better than I was, because if I was on that sideline as the head coach and ECU is down multiple touchdowns and they're calling timeouts as the seconds are ticking away, they're still calling their timeouts because I get the whole thought process, you can't take them with you. You're down 21 points. If they're going to call timeouts down 21 with a minute and change to go, I'm throwing it deep. I don't care. At that point, I'm doing exactly what many of us want BYU to do and score some style points. In fact, exactly what Texas Tech did to Utah earlier today. Tech easily could have just jammed it down Utah's throat. But you know what Joey McGuire did? Said, you know what we're going to do? We're going deep. And I really do think that BYU, Kalani is a better human being than I ever will be. It feels like he's just a prince of a man, as I've said. But I really do think that it was impressive to see BYU's defense do what they did. Okay, Guy. Jake, at least your postcast isn't after 1 a.m. It is a positive. I might be done before midnight tonight, everybody. I might be in bed at a decent hour. So really do like what BYU showed defensively. I think that there are things to improve upon. I still want to see more pass rush actually from the defensive line for BYU because, as I mentioned, Jack Kelly was the star with 2 sacks. Well, he's an outside linebacker. You want to see more from the defensive ends and the like. One thing that was mentioned to me by one of my coworkers who he'll remain nameless, but he is a pretty dyed-in-the-wool Utah fan. Utah is his team. And he was working while I was working on radio. And something he mentioned to me about Isaiah Glasker said, why do people not talk about Isaiah Glasker more? 6 total tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 1 pass breakup. Isaiah Glasker, he is absolutely electric. And I don't think we appreciate how good he truly is. He is, I think, an absolute star. And I think that in some ways, his play is overlooked in a way because it's so consistent. It's so good. That's the other thing about this. But I thought overall that the defense performed exactly what you wanted to see. Now, Robert made a good point. He does say Kelani. I hope that's just a typo on your end, Robert. Says pretty upset after a couple of the penalties, but he saw his not so happy side come out. He was irate. Remember, Trey Alexander got the taunting call, was unsportsmanlike late in this game. I thought Kalani was barking at the referee because he was kind of running down the sideline in the direction of the field judge. And I see it was Trey Alexander, and he grabs Trey essentially and says, we don't do that. That's not us. That is not BYU style. And that's a credit. That's coaching in the moment because Kalani, you saw him bark at him, but then throw his arm around him. That's like the justice and mercy thing that we hear all about in the gospel of Jesus Christ. Is he put his arm around his young player and said, hey, don't do that again. But I understand where you're coming from because Trey likes to talk. A lot of players like to talk. But it was really cool to see that. And I thought it was something that we learned. Okay, I'll get to this in just a moment, but finish my thought is that it was really fun to watch BYU do their thing. Payson Cougar fan. My wife thinks I'm reading the scriptures for Sunday school class. Payson Cougar fan, your secret's safe with me, buddy. We got you. I have not read this week's lesson myself, so I'm gonna have to do that tomorrow morning. I have late church. I have 1:30 church, which absolutely brutal. That's beside the point. Guy Gusman says Salter just ran in a touchdown for Colorado. Yeah, Colorado is still playing. They're playing Wyoming. I don't necessarily think Wyoming's that great, but Caden Salter's showing pretty well right now for Colorado. I thought was interesting. Lord of Chaos, the refs suck. Those ECU players are doing far worse most of the night. Here's the thing. In what we saw against Stanford with the ACC refs, I thought some egregious stuff that happened, holds and the like for ECU that don't get called. You just play for it and you just roll. So I think that you look at what's happening with BYU's defense. We're seeing a defense that it's downright elite, everybody. They were the last team to give up a touchdown this season. Like I said, 11 quarters, 35 drives before all that. And I think that the overall performance of this defense indicates that it is going to be an absolute strength for BYU the rest of the way. I don't care who they go up against in Big 12 play. This defense can hold its own and I think keep BYU in games. It is really, really that good. And Big Floppa did say this. I know some offensive PI. Trey Alexander probably should have had an interception. And the only reason he did not have that interception, he put out the picture of it, is the offensive player has his hand completely over his face mask, giving him a face mask offensive pass interference. You know what? So be it. But I do think that it's a good, strong defense that is only getting better as we go along here. Oh, and I also should say, according to Kalani Sitake and Evan Johnson, Jay Hill told Evan post-game that despite Evan's 2 interceptions, one of them a pick 6, which, by the way, huge play in and of itself, his reading that play, he thought that Evan should have had 2 more interceptions. He should have had 4. It'd be pretty impressive had he done that. The other thing is, I mentioned it, I should have said this earlier, is that Evan said on film, Jay Hill pointed out the exact play that Evan was going to get a pick 6 onto him. Gennaro Guilford on the Thursday edition of the show, I didn't have time to pull it just due to getting on air and whatnot tonight. But he said that the preparation, the ability, the film junkie that Jay Hill is, his preparation, it's unparalleled. He watches so much film. He is so prepared, and he's pointing out to his guys. He said, Evan Johnson said that Jay Hill told him this week, hey, that play is your play, and you're going to get a pick 6 off. That's awesome. That is really, really cool to see, is a guy like Jay Hill understanding what's going on. And I do think that the defense, it's I keep saying elite, but there's no other word that really matches it. Lumos says this, it's hard. I try not to be too critical of refs, but there are times it's really hard. I agree. There are times that you look at that big flop of Chase Roberts as a dog. Other than that, drop it, but it's going to happen. I was stunned that Chase Roberts had a drop. It was a flat out drop. It hit his hands, and you could tell he's like, I just dropped a football. Like, it was pretty incredible. So I do think that BYU absolutely killed it. Now, I want to get more of these comments. You guys got so many comments in here. We're going to get to more of them in just a minute. I'm going to throw them up and respond to them. We kind of be the final stanza of the show. Also, probably pass some other thoughts that come wandering through my brain on. But offense, defense, Kalani talks about wanting to see what he calls complementary football. We saw that tonight, and it results in BYU getting a win. So really cool to see that. And we'll get to more of those comments. There's a lot of good ones in here, and we'll get to them momentarily as you continue to roll on right here on a postcast edition of Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Of course, the best part about FanDuel is it fits however you like to go about sports betting. You can do player props, build a same-game parlay, jump into live action as the action's unfolding while you're watching. It has everything and keeps everything more exciting, whether you're watching your team or watching your fantasy lineup, just to stay up on what's going on Sundays. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to you watching football. Are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app today by visiting FanDuel.com or downloading the app and get that $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. As all courtesy of FanDuel to place that first $5 bet. Get it today at FanDuel.com or on the FanDuel app. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Hope y'all are doing fantastic out there on this Saturday night. Fun stuff. Now, Lumos had a good point right at the outset. Did Jake mean to send this at 11:30 today? It says tomorrow. Yes, I did screw up, and I said it for today. I made the change like the last 2 minutes before we went live. But the nice part about it is YouTube doesn't hold me. I'm not beholden to when I schedule. I can push it live whenever I want. So it's really fun to see that. Bryce, great point here. I think Bear has a higher ceiling, though I think Jake's experience in this offense would have been a plus in the Big 12 that could end up within our grasp. There are positives and negatives to that take, but the simple fact of life is it's Bear. You're rolling with that guy. And I think that Bear has proven himself. And that second half, I thought, was a really, really strong performance for him to get out there and play. So I like that. Guy Gusman, Evan Johnson was a turning point in the game. When you have back-to-back interceptions on back-to-back plays, yeah, it's a turning point, because one of them, he stops what could have been a scoring drive for ECU. In the very next one, he scores 6 points in himself as the first touchdown of the game. That was really, really impressive to see that. Corey has a good point here. Why not kick the field goal on 4th and 1 in the first half? Will is automatic. Let him eat. It's a great safety net for Bear. Kalani is still aggressive, and there are times the analytics say go for it, and he stands by it, and I can understand that. That he wants to be aggressive, and there are moments, yeah, that it backfires, and maybe should have taken the 3, but I really do think that he's handled his business just fine. Lisa Wise points this out. Jake had a rough game today, 29%, and got pulled by Tulane. Speaking of Jake Retzloff, if you did not see that performance against Ole Miss for Tulane, Jake's first completion in said game, I think he was 5-17 in the game. His first completion of the game, final play of the first half. Yeah, pretty rough. A tough game for him, but we'll see what happens. That ECU quarterback from SWB89, that ECU quarter QB tore us up at times, especially on 3rd and long. Got to get that figured out before we face a team with a good QB and a better team around him. The nice part is, I'm not 100% convinced that even Caden Salter's shown out against Wyoming tonight for Colorado, that he is that QB. Maybe it is Noah Fafita for Arizona. I don't know, but I do think it's interesting to see how things are going for BYU as with regards to looking at opponents and how things are shaking out here. The Big 12 is crazy. We saw ASU win on a walk-off field goal on the road over Baylor tonight. So crazy stuff there. Lord of Chaos, stop going for 4th and 1s out of shotgun. It drives me crazy. Amen, Lord of Chaos. I will, for the life of me, never understand why you're yielding 4 and 5 yards to the defense by going out of shotgun in said formations, or not formations, but said scenarios. But apparently that's why I'm the second guesser and A-Rod's actually in the chair making the call. Okay, this is a good question. I've actually had multiple people ask me about this. Let's get to it right now. Alex Beach, and by the way, I know that like 4 or 5 of you DM me, texted me. I actually got even an email about it already. Do you think Harvey Unger's tweet was referring to today or the game in 2022? Now, I don't necessarily know where it came from, so I apologize. I can't give it direct credit. I want to say it might have come from Sports Illustrated, what Casey Lundquist is doing, but that's just me gesticulating right now. But there was a point made that Harvey put a tweet out that he was they said, what incredible what happens when you can't steal plays or something to that effect. I have to pull it up. But the point he was trying to make is that back in 2022, when ECU came to Provo and beat BYU, there were, I guess, maybe not public, but private allegations inside the BYU football program that ECU was stealing BYU signals. Now, signal stealing is as old as time in sports. You can do that. As long as you're not using, say, electronic means to steal said signs, you're totally cool to do it. The thing that changed is they have the coach-to-player helmet communication. Bear Bachmeier has a radio in his helmet telling him the play calls. There are still play calls being signaled in from the sidelines, but the whole play call is not there. You can't steal it as readily. And his point, speaking of what Harvey's trying to say, is that BYU was upset with them stealing signals in 2022, and Harvey was essentially striking back at them and saying, hey, we know what you were doing, and proof is in the pudding. We smacked you tonight when you couldn't steal those calls. So there you go. I think that's what it was with regards to that. Guy has a good point. Everyone, please like the video. 214 in here and only 19 likes. Any and all likes you guys can give. It helps the algorithm, and I appreciate that. Guy is a loyal, long-time listener, and Guy knows what he's talking about. We're up to 373. I'm showing 373 live on my end. So if you guys wouldn't mind liking it, please do. It's all just right down here. You point. I'm going to point right there. It's like the little thumbs up icon. Push it. Simple as that. So yeah, other good things to come out of this. Some of these other topics as we wind down here. Guy Gussman, another good point. We need to clean up 3rd and long defense. Absolutely. That was kind of the one thing that was the one like bugaboo for BYU on this. Guy, good point. Jay Hill was really upset giving up that TD. The defense, the entire defense was. Evan Johnson and Jack Kelly said it was kind of a point of pride that BYU had been so good about not giving up a touchdown. They wanted to keep that intact. But had they gone 11 straight quarters without giving up a touchdown, that's pretty incredible stuff. I really do like what we saw from there. I'm just kind of scrolling through. Okay, this is a good point from Big Floppa. What's the problem with defending 3rd and long? The biggest thing I feel like against 3rd and long is the tackling has been suspect, but sometimes the drop 8 can get guys relaxed. And I mean, I'm wrong in saying it gets guys in the mindset, okay, we'll just keep everything in front of us, but you still have to play ball. You still got to go make the tackle. You still got to make a play. And that maybe Jay and Kalani, I'm trying to put those two together. If they need to be more aggressive in those circumstances. Guy, good point. If Wyoming can score 20 on Colorado, what will we score? Wyoming's offense is nowhere near the level of BYU, so that's an exciting proposition. Matt Turley. Hey, Matt, this is cool. As a North Carolina resident, thanks for keeping this game. And now I don't have any say in that, Matt, so I appreciate you saying thank you. Got to take my dad to the game. Pre-game was awesome. Well, Matt, I'm glad it worked out. Like I said, I've been pretty adamant that I don't think traveling to G5 opponents is in BYU's best interest, but stuff like that, I understand. It means a lot. I'm lucky that I live in Utah. I've got BYU literally right here in my proverbial backyard. Can go watch the Cougars play all the time. I got to do what I got to do. So it really is cool to see that. H. Jensen, we need to pay Hill head coach money. We need that man. Well, let's just put it this way. What they're paying Jay Hill right now at BYU would have paid a certain head coach early on in his tenure 2 years worth of salary. I'm just saying, based on the numbers that I know and what I've heard. Let's see. Lumos, I can't bet Utah, man. I know Utah gambling laws. Yeah, Colorado, we just won 37-20. I'm not all that worried about Colorado. By the way, I'm going to be in Boulder. I'm going to actually have a more time than I thought in Boulder. I thought we were flying out later with my dad than we are. So I'm going to have like most of the day Friday, and obviously it's a late night on Saturday. So if you're going to Boulder, let's see if we can meet up, maybe get lunch or something like that. I would love to hang out with y'all and just chop it up. I'm going as a fan. This is I as a media member, I can go to almost any game I want to. I can, but it's by myself. And my dad asked me earlier on in the summer, he said, hey, we went to the Notre Dame game is at 22 or 23 down in Las Vegas. He wanted to go for his birthday. So my brothers, my brother-in-law, all of us piled into a van and we drove down to Las Vegas and had a great time watching BYU and Notre Dame play despite the loss. Well, my dad earlier this summer said, hey, for my birthday, would you guys want to go to a football game with me again? I said, absolutely. He's like, well, can you do it with work? I'm like, you know what? Work's work. I work a lot. Many of you know this. I do this podcast every day. I work in radio, sports talk radio. I'm busy. I go to a lot of games, but I don't get to sit and watch games with people I care about very often. And I'm looking forward to it. It's a really cool thing because, like I said, as a media member, I'm watching it from a different lens. I'm not sitting out in the stands. I'm not really in the middle of the crowd. I'm high and up away from the players. So I really do think that it's gonna be cool to be in Denver and Boulder and just watch that game with my dad. So I really do think it's a fun thing to do, and I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So if you're going to be going to Boulder, let's meet up. I would love to have you guys do that and have some fun with that. It should be a really good time. Lord of Chaos. It was great fun watching Locked On U tonight. He must have said BYU hasn't beat anybody about 10 times. Well, let's be honest. Has Utah beat anybody? Because UCLA ain't it. Me and JT, we're good friends, but I'm going to have to let him have it. I'm going to have to go back and watch it. I didn't get a chance to watch it live. I'm going to have to go watch and see what he's got to say about that. But yeah, so appreciate all that. Guy is good. Another good point here. A couple of others made that point as well. It was disappointing the ESPN crew we got tonight. Funny enough, they struggled identifying players. I saw Aaron Murray, I think was the analyst, was calling guys by numbers. Okay, that's one of those things about this is you got to be better than that. And it's an ESPN crew. ESPN's really good typically about putting good broadcasters on the air. Now, the play-by-play guy on the touchdown run for Bear Bachmeier had an incredible call. He said, Bear looking like a grizzly, or I was like, okay, that's a good call. That was a good call. I really did enjoy that one. So I just spitballing here as we finish up. Big Flop, will you be in attendance for the Texas Tech game? I want to go to Lubbock. I don't know if I'm able to pull it off. Like I said, you guys know I work a lot. I would love to go to Lubbock. By the Texas Tech media folks, I've become really good friends with guys like Chris Level and the like, Joe Lopez out there, who writes for RedRaidersports.com. I have really enjoyed getting to know Texas Tech folks. I'd love to get to Lubbock. If it doesn't happen this year, the next time BYU's in Lubbock, I would like to get down there and watch it play out. So we'll see what happens. So, yeah, I really do think it's going to be a fun week ahead as BYU finally gears up. By the way, it's Big 12 play. The preseason, it's over. It's on now. And this is when you make your hay. If you want to play in Arlington to the end of the season, well, you can't afford falling flat on your face against the likes of Colorado. So that should be fun, and we'll see how it all shakes out. So, yeah, that is going to do it. I think, good point by Guy here. Michigan State is making it interesting with USC. I'm about to go maybe finish that game up. By the way, we just saw Utah play a game body clock-wise, 10 a.m. Mountain Time, and we're watching Michigan State tonight. They're on Eastern Time. Their body clock, 11 p.m. start, 9 p.m. on the West Coast against USC. Welcome to conference realignment in a nutshell, everybody. All right, that's going to do it. I'm done for tonight. But as always, you guys are absolutely incredible. Someone accidentally called Bear Hank once. Well, okay. Hank Bachmeier was a quarterback for many, many years. So, yeah, that should be interesting to see how that kind of pans out with certain announcers who may have called games for Hank, and they're trying to, Bachmeier and all that type of stuff. Okay, good point from Big Flop here before we go. What type of game would you consider BYU ECU? It wasn't a blowout, but it was never really close. Do you have a term for it? I'm actually going to steal a co-opted phrase I have heard from the Solid Verbal podcast. It's my favorite college football podcast. I have listened to Dan and Ty for more than a decade, and they have a term called crock potting. Now, what it means is you get into a game like this and you just really don't let them get close. You essentially just kind of hold them at an arm's length. It's the boxing analogy. Like the player's got really short arms and trying to swing it way at you and they're just not doing anything. It's called a crock potting. So that's probably the term I would use, is crock potting. And like I said, that comes from the Solid Verbal podcast. They don't know that I even exist out there, it feels like, but I've listened to them for many, many years, and I agree that would probably be the term I would call it. But Guy has a good point. He says anything over 17 is a blowout. Depends on eye of the beholder, but I call it a crock potting. I absolutely. That comes from Jeremy Jordan, apparently. So there you go. John, thank you to you. Thanks for all the work you do this for everyone. Hey, I love what I do. This is easy work. Trust me, a lot of y'all out there, like, I have a brother who builds houses for a living, and he loves to rag on me that you're soft. You sit in a studio. And I'm like, yeah, but guess what? What you do for fun when you get off work, the sports you're watching, pays my paycheck, bro. So fun stuff. But as always, really do think it's a fun time. Oh, this is interesting. I didn't hear this. Josh, thoughts on ECU's quarterback postgame? They didn't do anything to stop us. We stopped us. Losers say that. There's a certain announcer in this market that I have never once heard give credit to the opposing team. He's always said that the other team is the team he roots for or calls games for. They did it to themselves. I think it's a loser statement, but that's another story for another day. All right, that's going to do it. Oh, and BYU fan, bro, before we go, do you think BYU will be ranked tomorrow? I have given up on trying to think that BYU is going to be ranked until it happens. And quite honestly, the rankings that actually matter don't come out until, was it November 3rd? That first big conference college football playoff ranking. Those are the rankings that actually matter. If the national media want to reward an 0-2 Notre Dame by keeping them ranked because quality losses, yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, so that's a fun time. But as always, thank you for all y'all support. You guys are the absolute best. A lot of good interaction. For 400 of you at one point live on this on the postcast. And for those of you who missed it, it's going to go up on the podcast feed. You can tune in and catch the full thing because it's on-demand radio and audio. So it's always not radio. Audio and video is what I'm trying to say. But as always, truthfully, thank you for your support. I'm going to rewatch this game tomorrow. And of course, I'll have my reaction, my post-game notes, Film Review Monday coming up on our Monday edition of the podcast. Enjoy your Sunday, everybody. Thank you so much for your support of the podcast. And until next time, thank you for being an everydayer right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.